We are live.
We are live. What up?
Right now, it's the logo.
Very nice.
And so
what's happening, Facebook?
We'll cut in whenever you're ready.
I want to share the video. So that's what I'm setting it up to do. Lauren, talk to the people.
Say that again.
I said, talk to the people. Tell them what's going
happening? On. What's going on? Welcome to the Vintage House Show on Facebook Live. And we've got the entire team in full effect tonight. Again, another fantastic night at Vintage House. We can't see DJ Kevin McFall. We can't see DJ Lori Branch. What's happening, Lori Branch?
You can see me, can't you?
We can see you. They can see me, but I'm not to be seen. It's the Lori Branch show.
See you.
It's the Lori Branch show tonight. We're all cutting in on the Lori Branch show. We're going to be cutting in on each other's shows for a minute.
You're being Zoom bombed, Lori Branch.
I love it. Okay. All right, here we go. I just want to share everything with the folks on my page so we're all covered. Very good. I'm good to go. Well, I'm really excited today to have this show in the midst of a very crazy time. It is a crazy time in Chicago and across the world, but we're really excited to talk to our guest, who was such a gracious host for me in Miami just a few weeks ago. I feel like it was just yesterday, and we were having a good time, and it was sort of right before all the chaos hit. I was wondering why the airports were so empty. We just had great things.
Who'd have thunk it, right?
Now we know. Now we know. So DJ Thomas Spann, a.k.a. DJ Peace, thank you. Welcome. Appreciate you joining us on a Wednesday night.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to be here. And you're right, Lori. When we think about just a few weeks back, we were just having an amazing time, right?
We were.
And the world has changed. And as Lola said, in the flick of God's switch, blackout.
Happens just like that, right?
Reset.
It's interesting that you would use that term. I think Kevin McFall. Actually, we can't see you on the live screen. I'm looking at the Facebook Live.
Yeah, I threw up some lighting on the Death Star.
Hey, if you're watching us on Facebook Live, we're talking to DJ Thomas Spann. You're here with Kevin McFall, Kevin Mega McFall, who, your name came up in a conversation just yesterday. It was sort of weird. It wasn't a conversation, but one of your friends is a colleague of mine, and he brought your name up for the incredible work that Kevin is doing, with the agency that he works for. And I know that, anyway, we were giving y'all some love. It's called
I See Stars.
I See Stars.
The Inner City Computer Stars Foundation.
Yes, teaching kids how to code, all kinds of really cool things. I learned a lot, and I see this guy like every week, and this I didn't know. You probably told me, but I'm over 50, so, things tend to go away.
Me too. 2 degrees of separation, and then we're actually family here on the Vintage House Show, so I love the connectivity.
It's all good. Lauren, how's your week been?
I can't complain. We're all alive. Everyone's healthy. But isn't it amazing how really diverse and really smart the team is? I mean, you all are so smart that it really is scary. I think I gotta do some different. I gotta come up with a skill or something.
Says the academic amongst us.
Yeah, you all are killing it. I mean, years at Ebony Magazine. I could go on and on about Kevin. I can go on and on about you guys. I am really amazed all the time about the different skill sets that are here on the table. So really proud of all you all do. You in healthcare too. I mean, certainly at this time, your background is critical for us.
We're going to talk, and we're equally privileged to be with you. Tonight's going to be all about DJ Peace. Although, what do you prefer to go by? DJ Peace, DJ Thomas? What's your preferred moniker?
You call me anything except late for dinner.
Yeah, but
Now,
but speaking of
either,
health, yes.
yeah. So no, honestly, either is cool. You know, back in the day, you know, everybody had a cool little name, a little nickname, whatever. And so I went through all these iterations, and then at a point in my life, dealing with a lot of turmoil, I decided I needed to do something different. Part of that was rebranding, and so PEACE is actually an acronym for positive energy and constant elevation, which is what I'm always trying to be on that kind of vibe. So either one is fine.
My man.
Well, I love it. I love it. And you exude peace. When I saw you, when I got off the plane, I was like, that's the peaceful guy right there. Just like, it was your aura, and I appreciate it. Really, really cool vibe. So I really had a great time in Miami before all the madness broke out. So let's talk real quick about COVID before we get into your career. I think it's on everybody's mind. So what's happening in Florida? And I know it's 86 degrees, so we're incredibly jealous. But how's it working? You got a governor who wants to open up the state, and what's happening?
So Ron DeSantis is a lot of things, but the sharpest knife in the drawer, I would argue he is not.
Okay.
And I will say this because with this rush to try to get Miami or South Florida or Florida in general open for business, I'm going to throw out numbers. And from your healthcare background, you know, we're kind of in the same thing, so you'll follow me on this. Florida has 23 million residents in the state. We've tested just over 230-something thousand residents in the state. So that means we've tested not even 1% of the population. And somehow, based on that, they are extrapolating that the numbers are such that it makes sense to try to open the state. Now, I can tell you from firsthand, I've been out here working the mobile testing sites, that the amount of testing we're doing, the amount of retesting we're doing, and all of this stuff, I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Now, I hope that I'm wrong, but having worked with infectious diseases for years, I'm telling you, based on what I know from personal experience dealing with Ebola, H1N1, SARS, Zika, we haven't even scratched the surface where this is going. But the rush to open the state, and to pay attention, there's mostly southern states that are really rushing right now, it's about economics. It has nothing to do with health. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah.
Well, you know, because my feeling is if we get places open, and most of these states are right to work states or at will states.
Yeah. So
that means that if your job is open, but you personally don't think that it's safe for you to go to work and you don't go to work, they don't have to have a justification for terminating you. And guess what you can't do if you get fired? You can't file for unemployment.
Can't do anything.
So that's my conspiracy. C-O-N conspiracy.
I've also heard that it was a matter of savings on the unemployment taxes that states would have to pay out. They've collected, by the way, from the people.
Yeah. So again, could I swear on a stack of Bible that is his motivation? No. But based on what I'm seeing, and based on the fact that so many people, Florida is one of the states that leads the nation in enrollment in the Affordable Care Act, right? Then you factor in we've got probably the highest number of seniors, so therefore Medicare and Medicaid, right? So this governor, or the governors here in the state of Florida, have historically opposed the expansion of Medicare, expansion of Medicaid, and all of these other things. Meanwhile, the cost of living here in Florida has grown exponentially while the wages have pretty much stayed flat. So it's a recipe for disaster. So giving people, and I want to touch on something because I think this got lost in the sauce somewhere. Everybody's talking about this $1,200 check. $1,200 is a max, right? Now, if you're a married couple with children, it goes up. But if you're a single person, $1,200 is the maximum. Depending on your income, you may get as little as $500. Now, I don't know about anybody else. I ain't lived in Chicago in years, but I can't think of anybody who can pay their rent or their mortgage through $500 and then pay a car note, insurance, groceries, and utilities. Now,
Thomas, it gets worse. That amount, let's say it's 500 or 1,200, is simply an advance against next year's return.
Well, the IRS is saying that it's not taxable, but I trust the IRS as far as I can throw them. So, but here's the greater travesty. So you, I, all of us, we pay taxes when we get our income, and we pay taxes on our purchases, and at least in Florida, we don't pay state tax. You guys get hosed on everything in the state of Illinois. And then to turn around, we're bailing out all of these industries. Now, I have no qualms with helping out small businesses because that's truly the engine of our economy. But my issue is, in my lifetime, Lori and I, we're in the same age bracket. So in our lifetime, we've bailed out the airlines, for example, 3 times, right? And each time we've done that, what they've done for us is said, thank you very much, higher fares, more fees, crappier service, right? We're bailing out the cruise industry. Now, if you or I needed to get a loan to keep our businesses afloat, right? Traditionally, we have to go to a bank, and then you have to have some collateralization.
Right.
I'm thinking a $1 billion cruise ship is a hell of a lot of collateralization, so borrow that way as opposed to the taxpayer having to pay and bail them out. Because at the end of the day, we're creating this deficit that's just going to be unmanageable, and our grandkids and great-grandkids are going to be saddled with that.
Yeah. Well, this is the reality of our times. I mean, it's unavoidable. We have a very divided government, and then you plop a pandemic on top of it, you get this kind of stew that we're living in. So, I think I'm trying to figure out the bright side. I'm always looking for a silver lining. What would you say? What would you say is a silver lining for all of us and for you in particular?
So here's the silver lining. One, people are having to, we've been forced to hit the pause button. Now look at the benefit to the planet by us slowing down, right? The air is much cleaner. The temperatures are much more temperate, right? You don't see these extremes. At least by me, I'm seeing more birds, more bees. And then there's the family time, right? I'm a nature kid. I love nature. So I love hearing all the birds. I got all these birds in my yard that are singing every day. You see me posting videos. I love that stuff, right? But then the time with family, right? Now I know some people don't like that family, and hey, you don't get to pick your family, but well, you do. You can pick your tribe. But we've slowed down. I saw a picture the other day of LA, and it was time-lapsed over like the course of this whole period. And you went from seeing these brown skies to LA this week had very blue, clear skies.
It's amazing. It is amazing. I know that a lot of folks are saying that.
Here's my other upside. You and I talk. I love to check out different DJs, right? But unfortunately, a lot of times, depending on where you're at, you get stuck listening to the same DJs over and over. So what has happened, that's the silver lining to me, is now because everybody's home, Facebook Live, IG Live, you're getting to check out a lot of amazing, talented DJs that you might not have ever heard of. And the whole nonsensical argument about who's a club DJ, who's a bedroom DJ, and who's going on live, all that's going out the window now.
That's true. We're learning to appreciate music in a different way. And I think I like what you're saying, that it's gone out the window because everybody has to experience it in their own way. So I feel like it's a great opportunity for people to play all kinds of stuff. You want to hear old school stuff, the people who don't ever go out and they only want to hear old school stuff, you can hear it all day long. You want to break new things, you audience for that. And so it is a great opportunity, and I love to see how many DJs like yourself, who are doing live shows. So what is motivating you? I mean, tell me about the live shows that you're doing now and who you're playing for, and then we want to get into your history because this is Vintage House.
Okay, so the reason I'm doing the lives even more so now than ever is for a couple reasons. For me, music has always been my drug of choice, right? Unapologetically, unashamedly. So in times like this, each one of us can think back to a point in our life and we can identify a song that resonates with that point in our life. So I figured music is therapeutic, and I had a lot of people, especially started out with a lot of people here who are used to coming out to see me play. Well, nobody can go out and play. So I said, well, I'll play for you. And I really kind of did it as a lark. But now I have people who are calling me, who are texting me saying, hey, are you playing live tonight? So for me, it's a way to kind of give back. And what I have decided to do, some DJs, I know there's been a whole lot of chat about DJs using their Cash App and all this other stuff. I personally have a problem with that. But what I've decided I can do is when I go live, small businesses, women and minority-owned businesses, I'm asking for their information and I'm pinning it on my lives. And so using that as an opportunity to say, hey, for example, hey, go on, Lori Branch's website is right here, she sells blah, blah, blah. Let's go and support that sister. Click on that link. I don't need the Cash App. I'm not rolling in dough, but I'm okay. But let's take this opportunity. We talk about lemonade from lemons. So let's take this big giant basket of lemons we've had and let's make some lemonade.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful thing. So let's get into to Vintage House. So you've seen the show before, Thomas, and our goal is to celebrate and to document the history of house music in Chicago and its worldwide implications. And we've been on. This is our 5th year. Is that right, Lauren?
And congratulations.
Yeah, 5 years. It's so hard to believe.
Yes.
And we've had, I don't know how many guests on the show. I didn't even calculate. But Lauren, how many guests have we had on our show?
I didn't count all those.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to tell you, I think we're missing some people. I hate to say this, but we're definitely, I feel like there's some dates that I have not really added to the thing. And you owe me a couple of dates, so it's a lot, though, clearly. 5 years, 52, at least almost 52 weeks a year, right? For at least 2 of those years. So.
Yeah, so I think we can comfortably say we've had dozens, if not more, guests. Including their friends who they bring. Because, Thomas, when you come to Chicago, you got to come to the studio. Because it's a part, we have a good time down there.
You got to have a posse. The posse is in full effect.
Bring your posse.
The posse is just as intelligent and should be interviewed one-on-one as well. So the group interviews, Kevin had 19,000 people in there at the same time. I mean, I don't know how many. Can we count all of them?
Yeah, we can count everybody. So listen, let's talk about your time in Chicago. So you grew up here. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your community?
Absolutely. So born and raised, grew up on the south side, Chatham, 82nd and Vernon.
Man.
So, sorry.
Magic Kiss sign. The Magic Kiss. Yep.
Oh yeah, I missed that.
Magic. Oh yeah, the big lips. That's how we always knew when we were almost home. You fall asleep in the back of the car that's what we didn't have as seatbelts. This was the seatbelt, right? So, but you wake up and see the big lips, and you knew that we almost home. So I grew up in Chatham, went to Dixon Elementary.
Wow.
Shout out to Dixon Eagles. Yeah.
I grew up in Chatham Village, so right across.
Right over in the village, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So 86, grew up playing strikeout on the wall at Dixon.
Dixon and Perry.
Across the street. And, balling at Cole Park, right?
Yeah.
Funny enough, in that neighborhood, there were a lot of Chippy grew up over there. Cordell Johnson was in the area. Chris Saban, all of us grew up in that area. So went to school and went to Whitney Young for high school, right? So Dolphins represent.
Oh man, now you done it.
and during that time is when I started. So I actually started DJing before I got into high school, but not really like doing club stuff, obviously, because I was young. Mm-hmm. But my dad he managed several jazz bands, and he himself was a musician. So he used to carry me and my brothers down to Ted's Lounge in Lake Meadows back in the day. And because I always followed my dad around, between band sets, I knew the music that my dad liked, so I would go and put the records on. between the band sets. And this is kind of how I started DJing, because my dad would say, well, listen, we're playing 2 sets, so get some music together. And now, mind you, I shouldn't have been in nobody's lounge, but, you know, different time, I guess, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, parents in the business, you end up in a lounge. It just happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, of course, you know, the other side of my family with WVON, so I always grew up around music.
Yeah.
Always grew up around music. Now, how did
Hey,
I
Thomas,
Yes.
you know what WVON stands for?
So originally it was the Voice of the Negro.
That's right.
Ding, 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 ding.
Yes. I was going to clown George if he didn't get it right.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so, but yeah, but I actually started out DJing parties and stuff by accident.
Okay.
So,
how's that happen?
Okay, so you know we all used to have little basement parties, little sets back in the day, right? Your little handmade flyers and pluggers. We weren't sophisticated. Handmade pluggers.
Pluggers, yes.
$1 with plugger, $2 without, right? So I was at a party, and my buddy was actually the DJ. He was trying to get up with this female, so he goes, "Hey man, listen. This record goes on. Just play this one." Okay. So I kind of had an idea what I was doing, but I had never used turntables with pitches or anything like that. Mm-hmm. And these were the old Technique SLB, you know,
the belt driven.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So I put on record, and you know, people were still dancing, and he was still talking. So I'm like getting nervous, like, "Hey man, you gotta come back." He's like, "No, just play something else." So I ended up, my first basement party, I played for about 30 minutes. I'm pretty sure I train wrecked everything. I don't think anybody cared, because I was playing music that was, you know, this was music that people could dance to.
Right.
And then at the end of the night, he said, "Hey man, give me a couple dollars." I was like, "What's that for?" He's like, "Well, you know, for helping me out."
Right.
I was like, "Wait a second. Now, I've been playing records for my pops down at this lounge. I get a slice or two of pizza and a root beer. You putting some dollars in my pocket? Hold on."
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of got the interest going. And then when I would go visit my family down in the South, who were also working in radio, you know, they also owned a little juke joint way back in the woods. Everybody was in there, so I would always play records for my uncles whenever they decided they were going to go outside and do whatever they did outside. They would always come back in, eyes looking a little hazy, you know. But that's kind of my introduction. And then I just started doing it more. People would ask me to come out and play, because, again, my father had all these records. We had all the records from the station. So I had music.
That's great. Did you ever hang out down at the station with the other DJs?
On occasion. And so this is probably the most interesting thing, right? So even though I hung out on occasion, I never once tried to do any work at the station. And I've worked in commercial radio in other markets, but I've never done any work for my family with WVON. Just an odd thing.
Really?
Yeah. Who knows? So fast forward, freshman year of high school, and I meet this really interested, fast-talking guy who's passing out pluggers for a party coming up, Marvin Terry.
Okay. I know Marvin Terry.
Yeah. And
I saw him a couple weeks ago.
I'm trying to get a hold of him because I really want to just see that brother, give him a hug, take him out to eat next time I come there, and just tell him thank you for everything, because he's really who gave me my first opportunity to really start. No, and I tell everybody unashamedly that, you know, everybody's got all these great, cool stories. No, I started out helping Marvin out. He was passing out pluggers, and I was like, "Hey, what's that?" He was like, "Pluggers for a party." I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "Well, can I go?" He was like, "Yeah, you can go, bitch." I forget how much it was. Then he said, "Well, listen, help me pass these out." I said, "Okay." So I helped him pass them out. We were talking. And remember, at this point, Marvin's already in his, 20s, 30s? I don't know. I still don't know how old Marvin is. But
Black don't crack.
Right, he's Asian.
No, I don't.
So, you know, I was hanging out with him, passing out these flyers. I think we were either at 95th Street Station or whatever.
That
And
was the place to do it.
oh, absolutely. You know, because everybody was coming off the train, off the buses from, you know, all the schools. And so I helped him pass him out, and I stayed with him for a couple of hours doing that. And he was like, hey, man, well, you did a good job. You want to help me do this again? Okay, no problem. So I started out actually doing promotions with Marvin, passing flyers, hanging posters on the street lamps, on the fences, doing all that stuff, going to all the clubs, passing out pluggers when people would come out of the parties.
What were you promoting?
Parties at he was doing parties at the Bismarck and the Ascot, Blackstone. And
Okay.
so...
Gotta get Marvin on.
I would really love to have him on the show. That would be great.
So let me tell you, it was me, Tyree Cooper,
Okay.
Mike Williams. All of us used to be with Marvin doing this promotion. And through Marvin, this is how I met guys like Dwayne Woods. This is how I met Frenchie. You know, who I learned a lot about sound from. Dwayne Woods and Frenchie. But yeah, so Marvin had me going to all these places. And in the course of talking, you know, he found out that I was a DJ. And I was like, yeah, well, you know, he goes, well, where do you play? I said, well, I do some basement parties here. I do neighborhood stuff. And so he had a party coming up at the Congress. And I was joking. I said, hey, man, so when you going to put me on a party? And he said, well, why don't you play on this? You can open up. I'll put you on the party. You can play first. Now he's calling my bluff. Because I really.
Were you ready for that?
Nah. but I was gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
So we get down there, right?
Can you give me some years on this? When did you come out of Whitney Young?
85. So this was like 82, 83. I'm gonna say.
Were you there with Michelle Obama? No, she came out right before you did. No,
Michelle came out just
81.
before.
81.
Yeah, Michelle came out before me. Michelle and Mark Coleman and all those guys came out before me. So
yeah.
So I'm there, right? I got me a crate of records and all this stuff, right? Show you how bad this was. The headphones that I had were some headphones I got from Radio Shack or something, right?
Oh,
crappy
my goodness.
sound. Yeah, these were crappy sound. But so here was the thing. Now, talk about pressure. This was a party that I think Frankie Knuckles was playing on. And I knew of Frankie from, you know, the plant and all that stuff. I had never been there to party. I'd been there with Marvin to pass out flyers, right?
Okay.
But I knew about Frankie Knuckles. You know, I had a few tapes from him. So he goes, well, you're playing here. I'm like, okay, fine. But then I look, and Frankie's sitting over there going through his records. And I'm thinking, I'm supposed to play, and Frankie Knuckles is sitting right here. So this was me.
That'll shake your confidence.
So this is me putting the records on.
Yeah, no, I've been there. I have been there. My first time playing for Frankie Knuckles, I was doing the same thing. I'm like, why am I nervous? It's just a guy. No, it's Frankie Knuckles.
But Frankie was so nice, right? Because I'll tell you, I can tell you exactly the very first record that I played in front of a crowd bigger than a basement party. It was Diana Ross, No One Gets the Prize. That was the very first record I played. And
that's a great memory.
And the look,
That's a great song,
the reason I remember this is because Frankie looked at me and he said, well, okay.
Oh my God.
So
that's good. That's good. That's awesome.
Right. So that was like the big affirmation, because just okay. And I was like, must be all right. So I played, and I think I played maybe 35, 40 minutes. I don't remember, because the whole time all I could remember was doing this and hoping I didn't break the needle, because, you know. Yeah. And by the way, these were 1200s. I had been playing on, belt drive.
Yeah. Thomas. Hey, Thomas, yeah. I that same thing happened to me where I had been playing on belt drives and I got into a battle. It was the first time I ever saw 1200s.
Right.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll figure out how to operate these and compete with people at the same time.
Going from a stick shift to automatic, baby.
Or vice versa. It's like going from an automatic to no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's both ways.
Right. So, but I think I played 45 minutes, and then I think I don't remember who came on after me, but I remember Frankie saying, "That was okay. You all right? You all right?" I was like, man, he goes, but I'm still doing this right now. I'm done playing. I'm nervous. I'm like, what the hell did I just do? And so, and then Frankie said, listen, you play some really nice music. Don't be in a rush, right? And and this was the thing he said, and I say this to this day. He said, it's okay to let the records breathe. Let them breathe.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So, but that began.
Did he use that terminology back then? I know a lot of people say now.
He said, let it breathe.
So,
but that began a very long, a lifelong friendship, where Frankie and I became, very good friends. And so he's like one of my musical mentors.
Right.
And then, also on those parties, I ended up playing with guys like Lil Lewis, right? Ferris, and all those guys. So that was pretty cool. Around 84, Sawyer's was still open. So I was still, helping Marvin, passing out flyers and all that stuff. And this is where I met Hurley at Sawyer's.
Okay.
Sawyer's, it was him and E.T., and they had Hot Wax Productions. Right? At that time, it was Hot Wax Productions. I think you had DeAndre, had Gucci Promotions, and
Gene Hunt
started Diamond Court.
Yeah.
Okay.
And how I met Steve Hurley, and Steve, you hear me always tell people that's my big brother, because Steve and I have been close all these years. We still talk all the time. Matter of fact, we barely talk about music. We always talk about life, right? So, and how I knew Steve was a dope dude, clearly, ever since. And so Steve and I have continued to collaborate and do stuff years later.
Time flies. So you were in Chatham. You went to Whitney Young. What was the house music scene like when you? So you graduated in what'd you say? 85?
85.
So you were kind of right in the beginning of the sort of the canon, what we describe as the house music canon, when people were starting to create music. How did you fit into that scene, and what do you remember? What do you remember in terms of the productions, who was producing, like what was moving you right at that moment?
Okay, so at that point, that's when Steve had started really experimenting with making records, right? And this is when everybody wanted to own a Casio. Everybody had a Casio. I had a Dr. Rhythm.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
I couldn't afford a Roland. I had a Dr. Rhythm. And I think I had a Casio 101. But what was happening at that time? Let's see. Chip E had dropped Jag tracks by that point.
Okay.
I remember seeing like everybody was making records and dropping them on tracks. Mark Belcher and Chrissy Henderson, right? First Lady with Used by DJ. That was one of my records I loved. Wayne with his Dr. Derelict, right?
Right.
So everybody was dropping records. But the thing that I thought was really cool was that it created a whole new avenue for the DJ to not just play the records, but to also be the force behind the records and to be the entertainer as well as the entertainment.
All right, let me ask you a question, Thomas. A question I like to ask a lot of guests. Where did you first hear the term house music? Got to remember. Try to remember.
It might have. Trying to think. I'm trying to think if it might have been either listening to BMX or listening to, it might have been listening to back in the day, T. Chablis on WNUR.
Yeah.
So like maybe either college radio or WBMX. Yeah, because it's a thing that is elusive for a lot of people. Some folks, can be more definitive, but other folks, it's like I don't remember. It was just kind of in the air all of a sudden. Like I went into imports and there was a house music section, or I saw a sign that said we play house music. Leonard, put up a sign that said we play house music. Frankie said, "What is that?" And someone in the car says, "That's the house music from the warehouse." So it's there's lots of different stories, but I always like to hear perspectives of like when it first entered your brain.
Yeah, because as you asked that question, I'm thinking, even when I was doing the after hours at the Mars Bar, we weren't calling it. I don't think we were ever using the term house music. It was just it was those cuts that they play on BMX. That's the cuts they play on KKC. Or this is the new joints that picked up in Loop Records or Imports, whatever.
So the warehouse and power plant, those were, you were too young to go to warehouse, obviously, and potentially maybe the tail end of the power plant. Did you ever get to step into any 326, any of those early house music spots or pre-house music spots?
So now that the statute of limitations has lifted, right? I'm scared about what's about to happen to you. So remember I said, rolling with Marvin Terry. So there was many times I did step inside, I think 1015 Halsted, right?
Okay.
And not 326 on Indiana, but the underground, well, we just called it underground, underneath Lower Wacker, many times. Yeah. Because at that point, I had done a couple parties playing with Ronnie and Frankie at the Bismarck and the Ascot and the Black Star. Right. So even though I was underage, I was that kid that played with them, And I don't think Ronnie ever asked me how old I was. I mean, he knew I was young, but I guess maybe in his mind, I'm a DJ.
Yeah, no one asked those questions back then.
Yeah, So, and I was never in the way, if that makes sense. I just went down, enjoyed the music, and then, left. I never experimented with anything. I stayed in my one spot on the dance floor, getting my eardrums and my chest blown out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Lauren, I know you're chomping at bit over. I got some questions for Thomas.
You know me so well, Lori. Thank you so much.
I can look at you and see it's all swirling around in there. She's like, when do I get to ask?
I know. Well, I just take the notes and then, harass everyone later if I can. But so tell me, I remember the Mars Bar. Where was the Mars Bar?
That was right off of Rush. Trying to remember the exact address now. But Gerald was the resident there. And I met him at Imports. And we were talking, and I said, "Hey, man, you ever, need some help down there, let me know." And he called me up one night and said, "Hey, you want to come by, you can come play, because they went after hours. We went to like 4 a.m. there. And he said, if you want to come down, come on down, man, and play." So I went, and I played once. I went and I played again. I went and played the third time. And then he was just like, "Hey, man, if you want to keep doing the after hours, come on down." Because remember, that Rush, the Mars Bar was opening, I think, at that point at like 8 o'clock or something. It was going late. And people were
where was that located? I remember going there, but I'm drawing a blank on where it was exactly.
I'm going to tell you, it was almost up the street from where the Giordano's was. And I haven't lived in Chicago in 15, 16 years, so getting me to recall some streets now would be kind of sketchy.
Well, what do you take your Chicago card away? Chicago card is gone now. Come on.
Well, I remember some landmarks.
Give me
Giordano's, right? That's it.
It wasn't that far from where the Giordano's was. I want to say it's before you got the Gold Coast Dogs over that way. I know it was definitely before you got over to see.
Somebody online is going to help us out. We'll go to.
Nimbus is checking in. Remember the Nimbus?
Yeah, that's my man right there.
We talked about the Nimbus. My good friend worked there. He
Louis
was a
Green,
DJ.
what's up, Louis?
Bartender there.
That brother.
And so one more question. You know, I just sent the host this old poster where it listed, you know, 6 DJs who were playing that night, and I can't remember all of them, but Mike Williams is named. I keep seeing that name in like several of the Gene Hunts. We have Gene Hunt's collection in our archives, and I keep seeing Mike Williams. I'm like, where is Mike Williams? Who is Mike Williams? I don't know who Mike Williams is.
So I have no idea where Mike Williams is today, but Mike Williams was a bad man. An extremely talented DJ, extremely talented, and a real cool, humble dude, man. And where he's at today, I couldn't even begin to tell you, but Mike was always very talented, very meticulous in his music selection. And always, no matter what was going on, Mike was always cool as the other side of the pillow, always smiling, and would just, you know, he wasn't full of himself. So he was a real cool dude, and he was playing everywhere. But he never had the big head. You know what I mean?
Right.
So he's at today, I don't know.
He's on dozens of posters that I see, and I never hear anything about Mike Williams. I'm hoping our guests, our family on Facebook Live will give us some information on where Mike Williams is, some background on Mike Williams. Where did he go to school? Where is he from? Somebody's got to have that info on this guy. Because, of course, we'd love to have him on the show. This is the perfect time. If he's out of state, we can do a show like this and get him on.
Yeah, but Mike was a good dude, man, and we did a lot of parties together for Marvin Terry. I'm telling you, Marvin Terry had this knack for finding people who weren't who weren't the main, I won't say mainstream because that's not the right term, the maybe up and coming or maybe the lesser known, right? But talented folks. I remember the first time he did a party and I met Fast Eddie, you know, Eddie Smith, and like I said, just a lot of guys. George Jackson. George and I, that's how I know George Jackson. He and I from working with Marvin Terry.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the music you like. So there's a lot of old, we go back with Vintage House. There's a lot of the classics that people enjoy. If you had to pick your top 10 Dirty 30, we'll say the top Dirty 10. What would you say they are? Just spout them off. I want to hear what you would play if someone's telling you to, you know, rock a house, top stuff, back in the day. What were you gonna play?
Okay, so MFSB, Love Is the Message.
Okay.
Definitely, You Can't Hide From Yourself, because the Philly sound. What can you say, right?
Right.
Let me think. Sweet Tears, Roy Ayers.
I love that song. You don't play that a lot anymore.
You'll notice there's a whole jazz thing going here, right?
Right. That mix that was the mix that New Eurekan Soul did.
Right.
That was amazing.
Expansions, Lonnie Liston Smith, right?
Okay.
Probably more contemporary would be Time Marches On.
Okay.
You know, I love that. Strings of Life, right?
Yeah, that's great. Do you consider that techno?
I consider it more minimal.
Interesting, because we were having a discussion about that song with one of our guests, and he said, you know, he was a techno head, and he was like, no, Strings of Life is techno. We had a little debate about it.
It can fall into that, but to me, it's more along the minimal.
Okay.
Let's see. Another song would be Nobody's Business, Billy.
Oh, okay.
You know, I know that's kind of.
I don't know if that's dirty.
It's a vocal roller coaster. Absolutely, that's
but
good.
You know, listen, I used to love when Frankie would play that song. I don't know how many copies of that song I own, just because every time I see it, I go and buy the stupid record. Right? The Let's Get It Together, El Coco.
Okay. Now you can't play that with those songs that you. Well, maybe you could with Love Hangover.
Right.
You got 10 songs. You're gonna go from 107 to 123 to
Okay, so in the lower end, Billy Frazier.
Oh man.
Billy who?
Yeah. Right.
Who is that guy?
And Sharon. Let's see. Sharon Red. Can you handle it?
Yeah. All right. Okay. All right. That sounds like a good playlist. I feel a mixtape coming on.
Never know. Maybe after this.
Billy Frazier, Can You Handle It? That would people would go nuts for that right now. What do you like that's contemporary? Who are the more contemporary artists that you like? I know you like Louis Vega. We were there. He didn't come to our party, but he was there while we were.
Right. So definitely Louis. More so with his Elements of Life pieces happening. Mm-hmm. Another person that I really like is Cherie Hicks. Mm-hmm. I think she's got a phenomenal voice. I like a lot of stuff that Shauna Lee is doing.
Okay. What about Chicago artists? Like solely Chicago artists?
Okay, so solely, I'm going to tell you, for me, again, Cherie Hicks. I just drew a blank on her name now.
Carla?
Yes,
Carla Prather.
Thank you.
She's Carla's actually tuned in.
We see you out there.
Yeah, we see you. She's tuned in tonight.
And then, as far as producers,
yes.
And here's one of the things that let me say this, because this I don't think this gets said enough.
Mm-hmm.
I live in Florida. I'm from Chicago, so I support a lot of Chicago artists, and I support it by buying a lot of Chicago music.
That's
so
great.
I buy a lot of GU stuff, Steve Maestro stuff, Stacy Kidd stuff, S&S Records. Again, Sean Ali and Cherie Hicks, and I gotta say this: artists are making these songs that we love to play. They're not getting well compensated for it. So I think that
they're not.
I think that if you can't bring yourself to pay $1.99, $2.49 to support the culture and the artist, perhaps one ought to reevaluate themselves.
How diplomatic.
Yeah.
Diplomatic.
But go ahead, Thomas.
And I was gonna say, listen, it's I get a lot of promos, and even the promos I get, a lot of times I'll go back with some of the artists and buy a copy, even though I've already gotten the promo.
Yeah, I've done that too. I think it's so important to support folks, and I want to give a shout out to my boy Craig Loftus, who just sort of completed his whole Bandcamp. Bandcamp is also a way that you can support these artists. They create really their own sites with their own music.
Right.
And if you haven't visited his site, I would recommend that too.
Oh, listen, Craig, Titan, Nate Brooks with Cigarweed, a lot of talented guys who are deciding to go the indie route. And it's funny. So Craig, the first time I met Craig was not at a party; he was at work at an Evergreen Plaza.
Which job? Craig is Jamaican,
I think it was Burks.
as you know.
I think it was a shoe store. It was a shoe store.
No offense. Really? Oh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah,
Craig has a million jobs. So he does, he's a DJ and a producer.
Right.
But, he could also, knit you a three-piece suit if he needed to.
And he's a venue owner.
The Lodge.
And he owns a club.
I'm telling you, I think Craig is Caribbean. How many jobs
he could build a wing onto your house. I'm not kidding.
Ain't nothing wrong with
fix your car while he's doing it. He does.
They say your gifts will make a way for you, right?
Thomas,
oh my God.
Thomas.
Yes.
I wanted to ask you a quick question about the fact that you're in Miami, you're a Chicago native.
Right.
Obviously, house is in your blood and part of your DNA. Besides Winter Music Conference, can you talk a little bit about the love of house in Florida?
Right.
Great question, and I got a really great answer for you. So, let me preface it by saying there are a lot of expats from Chicago, New York, all those cold climates that live here, right? So that means there's already a crowd that appreciates the vibe and the culture and the music. Some of my buddies that I hang out with down here, Victor Rosado. Victor Rosado was the other resident with Larry at the garage. He's down here. Luis Mario, who's the president and CEO of Legends of Vinyl, right? So you got guys like I forget his name. He was the resident at 54. Studio 54 lives here, right? Jelly Bean lives here. Joey Madonia lives here. Dennis Baker lives here. So I get to collaborate and work and party with these guys. And so for me, now I'm the odd guy out. I'm pretty much one of the only Chicago DJs. I don't think I'm the only one here, but I'm probably the only one who's very active, right? So that question, what's the scene like? There's stuff going on all the time down here. And people think only Winter Music Conference, but there's 51 other weeks of the year, and I guarantee there's something going. Like Lori told you, the night before she played, Louis was here the night before playing, right? And you'll easily have 300, 400, 500 people out for Louis that night. Oscar G lives here, you know.
Wow.
Roger Sanchez is here. Joey Lano spends his time between here and in New York. Mickey Affleck of Afflicted Records, right? Sun Soul Records spends her time between here and New York. Richard Vasquez. Do you guys know who Richard Vasquez is?
No.
Oh yeah, I've heard of him. Hey,
I'm
Sherry.
not familiar.
So here's a little trivia. The song "Dr. Love" is a tribute to him.
Oh, okay.
He's the guy who owned The Choice. The Choice is where Larry and Frankie went when the garage closed.
Got it. His name is I have heard of Richard Vasquez.
Right. And so they lived with him, and they worked at The Choice with him, played at worked at The Choice for him. So Richard Vasquez is here. So there's a lot of history here. I believe
that's a solid community of lovers of the genre.
Yes, and one of the great things about living here is it has helped me redefine my sound again, because the infusion of Latin America, the Caribbean, Eastern Europe. So when I play an eclectic mix of music that's influenced by the cultures and the sounds and the sights that are around.
Right. That's great. That's amazing. So you ever want to come back to Chicago?
So I come to visit. I come to eat. But the reason that I left Chicago had more to do with when my son was born, right? Three things influenced my decision to leave Chicago. One, I became a parent. And I did not want to raise my son in the city because it was getting bad at that point, right? Now, I know that's a sore spot for people, but the reality is when I had my son, I had bought a house. I was living out in West Pullman, and it was getting bad. I didn't want to raise my son there. People can feel how they feel about that, but I had to make a decision I felt was best for me and mine. Right. Number one. Number two, at this point, my parents were deceased. My son's grandfather on his mom's side was deceased, so the only grandparent that was still alive was here in Florida. And I wanted my children to have a close relationship with their grandmother, their grandparents, like I had with mine. So that was the second reason. The third reason was I got offered a really great position professionally with the American Red Cross to run their HIV and AIDS programs for all of Miami down to the Keys. Now, somebody's going to pay you to work in Miami and Key West?
And the Keys. Yeah, I'll take that job.
Yeah, so I moved down here. Now, it hasn't been without, any place has its ups and downs, right?
Of course.
You know, I think Chicago is far superior with the culture, the cultural offerings. I love the fact, let me tell you, you don't appreciate something until you don't have it. Mass transit, I hate driving. Here, you gotta drive. But clearly also something to be said about being able to go to the beach on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
You know,
all right, so
no
don't
doubt.
go to the beach now, though. I don't care what your governor says. I want you staying home.
Yeah.
I want you home. Well, I know this. Yes, go ahead, honey.
I was gonna say, but I miss people and I miss places.
Yeah.
But the rest of it, though, you can keep it.
Well, I hope you can come back and visit. You know, unfortunately, I was one of the DJs scheduled to play at the Millennium Park thing. I don't know if that was a secret, but whatever.
No, you shared it on the show.
Music Festival.
Yeah.
Huh?
You shared it on the show.
Dennis and I were looking.
Okay, so
Dennis and I
yeah,
were
me
looking
too.
forward to come.
Yeah, in addition to the house music crawl that's put on by Rhonda Flowers,
and
so
yeah,
that was a nice weekend that we had planned. She is postponing that to June, and so that's still happening if the city is open, and if not, I think they have even another alternative date. So I want you to promise to come up when you can.
Definitely.
Chosen Few, we're keeping our fingers crossed for July. You know, we're going to see. It's all touch and go right now, but you know, we're going to figure out a way to party safely, social distancing, but we got to bring the energy back. We're experiencing some cool stuff, but it's nothing like being together. So I am hoping that once we do that, you will come up and join us.
Definitely. Dennis and I were looking forward to coming to support you, Millennium Park. We had talked about it, and then, like you said, all of this happened. But we had looked into coming up there too, because we told you we were going to come, we were going to support you. He was even thinking about bringing some music to perform on your set.
Oh, man. Yeah, that's right. He's a singer. He's amazing.
Right.
That would have been really nice.
And by the way, there's an open invitation for you at my little place down here. Anytime you want to be down here.
Was that the place where I did DJ?
Yeah.
That's the coolest spot. You guys have to go. When you go to Miami, we should all go and hang out at that spot.
What's the name of it?
It's Lemon City Day School. Now, don't let the name fool you.
It's not a school by any stretch of the imagination.
Because what I explained to Lori was, if you take a little bit of coconuts and AKAs with a sprinkle of Lorraine's, that's
there
Lemon City.
Okay. Yeah, it was a really, really nice party.
You got it.
I really appreciate you coming. Well, you know, I appreciate you taking the time with us. You know, this hour goes real fast. But is there anything else you want to tell folks? You know, anything that we can, how can we support you and what you're trying to do?
So here's what you can do to support me. One, on the 26th, I'm doing a virtual party to support the 100 Black Men at Greater Fort Lauderdale. It's the annual college scholarship fundraiser. Typically, we do an event, but obviously due to COVID, so I'm going to do that to help try to raise funds for scholarship for that organization. I mentor with that organization. I've had my son come to that organization. It's a great organization, so you can support me with that. The second thing that I'll say is, if you see me doing a live and you have a small business, please pop in, give me the link. Let me try to promote that for you. I don't need anything from you except for the information, because I'm serious about supporting our small businesses, especially minority and women-owned businesses. Third thing I'll ask you to do for me is please check on your neighbors, especially your elderly neighbors during this time. It's cool to send a text, but there's nothing like picking up the phone. And if you want to go by, because we have to do social distancing, call, knock on the door, just check on people. Take some groceries by somebody. You don't have to have much to do much, right? Dr. King said everyone could be great because everyone can serve, right? So you could do that to support me. And finally, support your local Chicago artists. Support venues and forums like this, like Vintage House. Support your promoters like Rhonda Flowers. Rhonda's been doing stuff for years and years. Craig's been doing stuff for years. Craig.
That's right.
So let's support them. Right. Let's support them while we have them. Buy tickets if the Chosen Few if the Chosen Few event doesn't get canceled. Buy tickets. Don't bitch and moan about the cost, because you'll spend that on one night going out. So support that, because that's an institution. Wayne and Allen won't say that. I'll say that. I do these big festivals sometimes where the gate entry is $100, $200, $300, and it's packed.
Yes.
You can do this to support the Chosen Few. And finally, when you see other DJs playing live, playing out in the clubs, they may not be your your known brand, your known quantity, support them too. Because everybody, this is my philosophy. A lot of people gave me opportunities and open doors for me. So if I get my foot in the door, I'm not trying to close it behind me. I'm trying to prop it open so somebody else can come behind me. Do that to support me.
That's right. You know, Alan King, you see me putting my headphones on, so you know what I'm about to do. But Alan King, Alan King did a really cool thing by saying, you know, listen, you know, he's a lawyer by day and a DJ by night, and weekend and special events. And he said, you know, he offered his page up that if you're a DJ and this is how you earn a living, you know, put up your Cash App and let's get some stuff going. And I thought it was a really generous offer. And so I appreciate what you're saying too, that if this is your artistic expression and not the primary source of income for you, and you're doing live feeds, give people an opportunity to give to something. Maybe that's to another DJ, or it's to a business, or it's to you know, a struggling nonprofit. There are a lot of people hurting today. So, you know, and absolutely, and they don't have to, because we have the resources to help each other. We just got to make sure that they get into the hands of the right people.
And house music is a healing force. And so, you know, that theme that you just put out there, the generosity, the kindness, and the compassion is inherent to, you know, this thing we call house.
Absolutely. And I just want to salute you guys for what you're doing, telling the story, because one of the things we often fail to do is we fail to tell our own story. So others write their story for our story. And, you know, 5 years doing this is awesome. I just celebrated 5 years with my show on WMOC. And I'm just going to say this to you all. See you at the top.
Congrats.
There's room.
Right on.
There's room at the table.
Hey, there's plenty of room. There's room for everybody. So, hey, listen, I want to thank everybody who's watching. I might stay on Zoom for a couple minutes and spin a couple records, but you got a live show coming up, Thomas, and we can tune in.
I'm gonna set up and I'm gonna go live. If anybody wants to come over and hang out, I'm gonna be up for a couple of hours anyway, because I gotta do some post-production stuff later on, and I'm creative in the wee hours. You know how that is. So I'm gonna do a live set. Invite everybody over. Feel free to come on over. And I thank you once again for being so gracious to me and for thinking I was important enough to talk.
Oh, get out of here. Well, thank you, DJ Thomas Spann.
Great story.
DJ Peace.
Thank you.
Love it. Thanks for tuning in. Kevin, yes. What we got coming up on next week?
Next week, I think joining us on the Vintage House Show will be, of course, the Vintage House family, and we want to hit you with some surprise guests, but I'll give you a hint. These guys are brothers in the genre of DJing house music, so we're thinking
brothers.
Yeah, that we're gonna have.
We need to tease that all week on like
on
the different social media, like
Blood Brothers.
Give me some hints around, you know, who that, how many brother sets or sibling sets are there in the house music biz generally, like, you know, so we got to sort of tease that all week and say, you know, so people can get a hint who's coming on the show.
We will do that. I will say in a couple of weeks in May as well, Thomas mentioned a DJ/artist, Stacy Kidd, will be joining us in May. Yeah. So we're looking forward to that. But stay tuned.
Stacy Kidd's joining us. What's up, Stacy? Yes.
Yes. So stay tuned.
You know
to the
what?
Vintage
His wife
House
should
page.
join us too. That'll be fun.
That's a great idea.
I said his wife, Kay Kidd, should join us too.
That's a great idea.
Because she's been in the game too.
All right.
All right, well, thank you all. I love you. Appreciate you. I might do a little live on my page. I don't know. I could stay on Zoom, but I know y'all want to go to bed.
We gonna jump it all to Facebook Live. We'll all join you on Lori Branch's page. Yeah. The Vintage House page will go to that as well. So we look forward to that, girl. You know, I can't wait to have, you know, for the live spot. What T-shirt? Who are you representing on the T-shirt today?
Oh, this is Mick Calvin and his girl Alicia. It's one of my favorites. It's House Baby.
Very nice.
Cool
Love
stuff.
it.
All right, I think
Good
we
stuff.
reached our time limit with our show. So peace out, everybody.
Peace.
Kevin, next week, be here. Everyone be here, 9 o'clock to 10:15, right?
Yep. All right.
All right. Love. See you on the
Bye.
pages.
Stay safe.
Okay.
Wash your hands. 20
Thank you.
seconds.
All that. Bye.
Bye.